Stop scrolling for a second, because this story will make you question everything you think you know about power, prejudice, and justice in America. Imagine stopping at a quiet gas station on a lonely highway late at night, thinking you're just grabbing fuel and coffee, only to witness a moment that turns into a life-changing confrontation. If you love gripping, true-style stories about hidden strength, shocking twists, and justice when you least expect it, make sure you subscribe and stay with this channel, because the story you're about to hear is something you won't forget. It was a humid Friday night somewhere along a quiet stretch of highway outside a mid-sized American city, the kind of place where truckers stop for coffee and travelers stretch their legs under buzzing fluorescent lights. The gas station parking lot was mostly empty, except for a shiny black luxury SUV parked crookedly across two spaces near the entrance and a dusty pickup truck idling beside pump number 4. Inside the truck sat Marcus Reed, a tall, broad-shouldered black man in his early 30s, with calm eyes and the kind of posture that hinted at years of discipline. He wore simple jeans, boots, and a plain gray hoodie, nothing flashy. Nothing that suggested the kind of life he had lived or the training he carried in his muscles. To anyone passing by, Marcus looked like just another tired traveler filling his tank before getting back on the road. But the truth was something few people would ever guess. Marcus Reed was a Navy SEAL, one of the most elite warriors in the United States military, home on a brief leave after years of dangerous deployments overseas. That night, he wasn't thinking about missions or combat. He was thinking about seeing his younger sister the next morning and finally getting some sleep. As the pump clicked and gasoline flowed into his truck, the doors of the luxury SUV burst open, and out stepped a well-dressed couple who looked like they had just walked out of a high-end restaurant. The man, tall with slicked-back hair and a designer jacket, carried himself with the careless arrogance of someone used to getting whatever he wanted. His name was Daniel Whitmore, a wealthy real estate developer whose family name carried influence in the city. Beside him stepped his wife, Vanessa, dressed in expensive heels and holding a phone as if it were a permanent accessory. They were arguing loudly before their feet even hit the pavement, their voices echoing across the nearly empty station. Daniel slammed the SUV door and barked something about the pump being occupied while Vanessa complained about how long they had been driving. Their irritation quickly found a target when Daniel noticed Marcus standing quietly beside his truck. Marcus didn't look up at first. He simply continued fueling, calm and patient, waiting for the pump to finish. But Daniel, already drunk on both alcohol and ego, took the stillness as disrespect. "Hey!" he shouted across the lot, his voice sharp. "You planning to take all night?" Marcus glanced over calmly and said in a steady tone, "Pump's almost done." It should have ended there. A normal person would have waited the 30 seconds it would take for the pump to click. But Daniel Whitmore was not used to waiting, and something about Marcus's quiet confidence irritated him more than outright hostility would have. Vanessa rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath about people like that always causing delays. Marcus heard it. Years earlier, it might have sparked anger, but discipline had taught him patience. He had faced far worse than careless words. Still, Daniel stepped closer, the smell of expensive cologne mixed with whiskey trailing behind him. "Move your truck," Daniel snapped. Marcus calmly replaced the pump handle and closed his gas cap. "I'm done. I'll move," he said, his tone neutral. But instead of stepping back, Daniel walked right up into Marcus's space. "You think you can just ignore me?" he said loudly. Vanessa began recording on her phone, a smirk forming as if she expected a spectacle. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in fear, not even anger, but calculation. He had seen this kind of situation before, the kind where ego looked for a fight. "I'm not looking for trouble," Marcus said quietly. For a moment there was silence, except for the buzzing lights overhead. Then Daniel shoved him. It wasn't a hard shove, but it was deliberate, the kind meant to humiliate. Marcus stepped back one pace, steady as a rock. The training in his body told him to remain calm, assess, avoid escalation. "You should go back to your car," Marcus said. Vanessa laughed loudly, mocking his calmness. "Look at him," she sneered, acting tough. Daniel shoved him again, harder this time. And that was when the atmosphere shifted. Not dramatically, not violently yet, but the subtle change was there, like the quiet moment before a storm breaks. Marcus straightened slowly, his eyes locking onto Daniel's. Something about that look made Daniel hesitate for half a second, but pride pushed him forward. You think you're better than us? Daniel shouted. You people always. He didn't finish the sentence, because in the blink of an eye, Marcus moved. Not aggressively, not wildly, but with the precise efficiency of someone trained to neutralize threats. Daniel's wrist was suddenly twisted behind his back, his body pinned against the SUV before he even understood what had happened. The phone slipped from Vanessa's hand as she gasped. What are you doing? She screamed. Marcus held Daniel firmly but without unnecessary force. I told you I wasn't looking for trouble, he said quietly. Daniel struggled, but the harder he pushed, the more obvious it became that he was completely outmatched. The years Marcus had spent training with the world's most elite military unit meant every movement he made was controlled, efficient, unstoppable. Daniel's arrogance quickly turned to panic. Vanessa started yelling threats about calling the police. Do it, Marcus said calmly, releasing Daniel and stepping back. Daniel stumbled, rubbing his wrist in shock. He had expected fear. Instead, he had encountered something he didn't understand: quiet strength. But the night was far from over, because just then, a pickup truck rolled slowly into the station. An older man stepped out, broad-shouldered, gray-bearded, wearing a veteran's cap. He had seen the last few seconds of the confrontation. He looked at Marcus carefully, then at Daniel. Everything all right here? The older man asked. Daniel quickly regained his bluster. This guy attacked me, he shouted. Vanessa nodded dramatically, grabbing her phone again. The older man didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked closer at Marcus's posture, the calm stance, the subtle signals only someone with military experience would notice. You serve? The man asked quietly. Marcus hesitated for a moment before answering. Yes, sir. Daniel scoffed loudly. Yeah, right. The older man stepped forward and extended his hand. Retired Marine, he said. Marcus shook it. Navy? The Marine's eyebrows rose slightly. SEAL? Marcus nodded once. The silence that followed felt heavy. Daniel and Vanessa suddenly looked less confident, because the man they had tried to bully was not just some random stranger. He was one of the most highly trained warriors in the country, and the Marine wasn't the only one noticing. The gas station clerk had called the police during the shouting. Within minutes, flashing lights approached the station. But what happened next shocked everyone. As officers stepped out and began asking questions, the Marine calmly told them exactly what he saw. Daniel had started the confrontation. Vanessa's own phone recording, meant to embarrass Marcus, captured the shove that proved it. Daniel's confident smirk faded as the officers replayed the video. One officer looked at Marcus and asked quietly, You military? Marcus nodded. The officer gave a respectful glance before turning back to Daniel. Within minutes, the situation flipped completely. The man who thought his wealth made him untouchable now found himself being questioned about assault. Vanessa tried to argue, but the evidence was clear. And then came the final twist Daniel never expected. The Marine stepped closer to Marcus and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, My son served with the SEAL teams overseas. Men like you keep this country safe. The officer nodded in agreement. Suddenly, the arrogant couple realized something humiliating. The quiet man they had tried to bully wasn't just capable of defending himself. He was a decorated warrior who had risked his life for the very country they bragged about. Daniel's voice shrank to almost nothing as he muttered excuses. Marcus simply picked up his coffee from inside the store, nodded politely to the Marine, and walked back to his truck. He didn't brag, didn't threaten, didn't celebrate, because true strength doesn't need applause. As his engine started and the truck rolled out of the gas station, the flashing police lights reflected off the pavement behind him, leaving Daniel and Vanessa standing in stunned silence, realizing that the man they thought they could intimidate had shown them a lesson they would never forget. That respect isn't bought with money, power, or status. It's earned through character, discipline, and courage. And sometimes the quietest person in the parking lot is the one you should underestimate the least. If this story surprised you and you want more powerful stories about courage, justice, and unexpected heroes, make sure you subscribe and stay with us for the next one, because the truth is, stories like this happen more often than people think, and the next one might be even more unbelievable.